All right. I love that. And only
So,
you could get me out of the bed this early in the morning. I am not a morning person. So I'm ready to go. But at 8 o'clock, I'm ready to go.
right, let's do this because I gotta, we gotta do this 7 a.m. I know you say you couldn't do 2 hours. So for all the listeners, this is Kadida. She's the CEO of New Pennsylvania Project. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself before you get into what NPP
Sure.
means?
Sure. Well, part of myself will kind of lead you to, why I founded this organization. So my name is Kadida Kenner. I'm the founding CEO of the New Pennsylvania Project and the New PA Project Education Fund. So it's two organizations. And just a little bit about myself. I've had a winding road to kind of get to where I am right now. I've done a lot of things in my life. I'm a former college athlete. I am also someone who has done various jobs. I've done retail, I've done restaurant management, I've done television broadcast. Used to work at ESPNU and used to work for Aspire Network, Magic Johnson's television network in Atlanta, doing his sports television programming for HBCUs. It was my job to get historically Black colleges and universities sports programming on television. And that was probably the hardest job I ever had, is trying to get media markets to pick up D2 schools and broadcast their games on television for the world to see. So that's a little bit of, about me. I currently live in Westchester. Well, I'm from Westchester, Pennsylvania. I currently live about 15 minutes from there now, outside of King of Prussia. And I was born in Pittsburgh, so I'm trying to cover the state. I lived in Harrisburg for several years as well. So, there's just a few more places in Pennsylvania I need to live before I cover it. And I've lived different places as well. I've lived in North Carolina, I've lived in Maryland, I've lived in New Jersey. So just a wealth of experience that has kind of brought me to the place that I am now,
Mhm.
which is founding an organization that is a voting rights organization that's trying to get folks, particularly the communities in which we center, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, the youth, immigrant communities, get them registered to vote and voting.
That is amazing. You literally just missed our sports talk about LeBron, like just 5 minutes. So now I was listening to one of your YouTube video on your site, and you was talking about how a lot of people fought and died just so people could vote,
Right.
right? And like we hear a lot about all these struggles that we go through, for us to have more choices, more benefits, a better future. What was that like for you even like what made you get into that particular portion of that conversation because of how complex it is?
Mhm.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I come from a civil rights family. I come from a political family. We talk about the history of enslavement of African people here in this country, and I'm direct descendant of someone, who comes from Africa, enslaved on a Mississippi plantation, being the son of his master in Mississippi, Aberdeen, Mississippi, and that was my great grandfather, just one. And whenever I talk about this work that we do, particularly when I'm with students, I was with middle school students yesterday in Philadelphia and Overbrook. And I usually ask the question, do you know who your great grandparent is? Have you ever met your great grandparent? And most people, particularly the youth today, they have met their great grandparent. And for me, it was my great grandfather, my father's grandfather, born on a Mississippi plantation, son of his master, who went on, to do amazing things. Graduate from Fisk University, go ahead and move to Memphis, Tennessee, and become one of the most wealthy men in all of Memphis, Tennessee. But like so many successful Black men of that time, was assassinated in front of one of his businesses in 1911. And I talk about him because his inner circle was Booker T. Washington, Ida B. Wells. I mean, that was the circle he ran with in Memphis, Tennessee. And so I think I come to this work honestly, where it's truly in my DNA. And I am someone who truly respects our ancestors, my ancestors, our ancestors. and wants to continue the work that they started. And so we can fully realize what it is. We are the manifestation of their wildest dreams. And so we must carry out this work and make sure that we have the rights that we all deserve and our God-given rights and our freedoms here in this country. So for me, I do this work to honor my ancestors. And so I'll continue to do this until I no longer can.
That's amazing. Very amazing. Um, just to continue that conversation, I would like you to tell the listeners exactly why is it so important to vote.
Yeah. This is the big one. You know, there are 1.2 million Pennsylvanians who are eligible to vote but not registered to vote. 1.2 million. It's a lot of football stadiums worth of people. And why we have this conversation on the ground and meeting folks where they are, if that is outside their bodega, if that is inside their barbershop, if that is where they shop for groceries. We have this conversation that let's get you registered to vote today so we can improve our lives, we can begin to get our needs met. We can voice the power that we have as a community to begin to get our needs met. There are so many outside of the communities in which we center who are registered to vote, and they get their needs met because they vote consistently and their elected officials fear them and fear them voting or fear them not voting for them. And if we are going to have any kind of change in this country, particularly for the communities in which we center, we're going to have to come out here and vote consistently. You know, we're just coming off a primary election, and turnout for a primary election is less than 1 in 4, right? So you have 4 people registered to vote. One person came out to vote in this primary election. And this primary election is where you get to choose who it is you want to represent you in a general election. So here's an opportunity to really bring the change. It's really about you want the best candidate. You want somebody who has your lived experience, someone who's going to represent you. Then it's important that you vote in a primary election so that you can actually have someone who truly represents you, have a chance to then get elected in November in the general election. So for us as an organization, it's truly about talking about the past, but also definitely talking about the future and what's happening right now. And if we want to get our needs met, if we want to have equitable school funding, if we want to raise the minimum wage here in Pennsylvania that's stuck at $7.25 an hour, if we want to have safer schools and we want to have guns off the streets, then we're going to have to vote, because that's the way that change happens in this country, as we are still in a democracy.
And I'll tell you, listen, we here, right, come from well, all of us here are immigrants from the Caribbean, right? So a lot of our listeners are Caribbean. And what I'm about to say is when they migrate and they become citizens, or even children of immigrants who become citizens, the importance of voting or the education of why we vote is lacking, or who are the constituents, the policies of it, or I mean, like why we even make these decisions. A lot of them who come and they vote is because that's the right thing to do, but not even knowing who to vote for, why they should vote for. The policies are missing. So having you here is great for us to see how important it is to be more in depth in what is going on in Pennsylvania, especially.
Yeah. I'm proud to say that we have our staff. We have about 20 staff members, full-time staff members, who do this work year round. And we have one staff member who is not a citizen. She's from the Caribbean. She's not currently a citizen, who's doing this work to engage her community, because it's so important that we do get this information. If you come from Cuba, you may not be into politics because the life experience you have in Cuba wasn't great as it relates to politics. If you're from the Dominican Republic, you also have a different experience. If you're from Haiti, you have a different experience about what politics looks like in the countries in which you've come. And so to come here to the United States, it's a different system. We have our flaws as well. We're still trying to realize a true democracy. And so we realize that. And so when we say that we center communities of color and we center immigrant communities, we are really trying to, understand what the basis of knowledge is, what the experience is you're coming from in the country in which you lived, so that we can talk about that and have good conversation about that now that we're here in the United States. And I think that that's so important in this moment is we do a lot of listening as an organization when we're on the ground trying to talk to people and get them registered to vote. What is your life experience? What is keeping you from getting registered to vote? Is it that you did not have the civics education in school? Did you not learn this in 10th grade, 12th grade? Let's talk about how we can bring change in our neighborhoods if we are actually involved and part of the electorate. And I think that's really important. And that's not just for, Caribbean immigrants. This is Russian immigrants that we've talked to, and others, who have a different experience of what government looks like, in the country in which they come from. And so really trying to break down what that looks like here in the United States in the year 2023 and what we can do as a people to bring change in our neighborhoods.
You mentioned civic education. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Okay, yeah, so you mentioned civic education. Could you tell us more about that and what that means?
Yeah, civic education. So, I think back to my 10th grade year, and I guess it was really impactful for me to have civics in 10th grade and earlier. And it's just truly learning about what government means, what it is. I mean, we have a federal government, we have a state government. What are the differences there? What do elected officials do in their different positions? I mean, that's one of the reasons why a lot of folks don't vote, particularly in the primary election. They have no idea what these people are supposed to do. You want me to vote for a magisterial judge? What does a magisterial judge do? You want me to vote for a superior court judge? What does a superior court judge do? You want me to vote for a register of wills? What does a register of wills do? What does a mayor do in my small town compared to Philadelphia? And so civic education that we're trying to provide is just that. It is, what do these elected officials do? What are they supposed to be doing for us? Our tax dollars are paying for their salaries. So what is the service they're supposed to be providing to us that would encourage me to actually come out and cast a ballot for them? Why should I come out of my home, on a cold Tuesday in November and vote for somebody I have no idea what they do? And I don't even know who they are because I've never met them and they've never come to my neighborhood. So that's what we're truly trying to provide in terms of civic education. What is it that these elected officials are supposed to be doing? Who are they? And why should I cast a ballot for them? It's also just the breakdown of government. Who does what? I mean, we can be in a situation where we're mad at the president of the United States for something he has no control of. It's not his job. It's the legislature's job. Or we're mad at the Supreme Court for something they did when it's not even their issue. It's something that the legislature did, right? So truly understanding how government works so that we can advocate for ourselves and we know who to go to and who to hold accountable. It does no good to go to the wrong person to hold them accountable for something they can't do or is not in their purview of control.
Just saying that reminds me of barbershop talk. Like, you hear people talk a lot about the government. They talk about the president not doing what they're supposed to do, not knowing how much goes involved in decision making for the people. Man, you are great. So looking at your website, I see that people could get involved. People get involved, and also you're hiring. So we could donate, you could get involved, and you're hiring. So how do we get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, it is our theory of change as an organization that we hire people from within the community to organize their own community. Nobody can go into a community in Philadelphia and talk to the community in Philadelphia and get them registered to vote and get them voting better than someone from that community in Philadelphia. It does no good to have somebody from Delaware County, show up in Harrisburg and try to talk to the people there on the ground and get them involved. And so what it is our theory of change is that we hire people from in the community and we're building leaders. We're hiring folks that have no experience in actually doing this work, but they're a friendly individual and they're funny and they smile and they have a good vibe, right? And we want to put them on the ground and we want them engaging neighborhoods. So for us, the theory of change is that we're hiring people from within the neighborhoods to organize and relate to their own communities to get them invested in joining the electorate. And we're really proud that we've had lots of internal promotions as an organization, folks coming into us, being part-time or being contractors and being elevated into higher positions and building leadership in their neighborhoods. And they take that back to their own families. And so for us, it truly is about paying people for their work. So yeah, we would love to have volunteers, help us out when it's crunch time and we're trying to knock on the most doors or we're trying to get the most folks registered to vote. But truly, as an organization, we're paying people for their work. And if you are going to be out here knocking on doors with us and going into the barber shop on a Saturday, then we want to pay you for that, and we want to make sure that you're having good conversations with the neighborhood and providing that civic education that we need to provide so that we can get people really truly involved. But besides that, yes, we are hiring. We are hiring right now in Philadelphia. Absolutely. We're hiring in all the suburban areas around Philadelphia as well. So if you're someone who is just interested in this and, maybe you come from a customer service background and you've worked in retail, this is something you might want to try. This is a different type of retail. We're not selling product, we're selling democracy, right? So we're knocking on doors and saying, come get this democracy. Come be part of the solutions for all the problems that currently exist.
So for all the people who wants to get involved, where they can find you in order to join that, get all that information.
Yeah, I mean, we're all over the social media channels. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We even started a TikTok page recently, so we're trying to get more involved with that. You can find us on our website, newpaproject.org. We're all over the place. You could just Google us and you'll see the work that we've done. You'll see some pictures and some graphics, and you'll see, the work that we've done. Last year alone, we registered 20,000 Pennsylvanians to vote, and it was our first full year in existence. This year, we want to do the same thing. We want to register even more than 20,000 if we can. We're hoping to register 25,000 people to vote this year. We want to register 100,000 Pennsylvanians to vote next year. So we're trying to make a dent in that 1.2 million number that continues to grow every day.
So let us know how we could help.
Yeah, just would love it. So if you know anybody who's looking for a job, like I said, we're hiring. Send them our way. We would love to interview anyone who is interested in doing this work, bring them into this work. You're able to donate to this organization so we can pay people to do this work. Please, in our first year in existence, the majority of our funding came from individual contributions, just everyday Pennsylvanians who thought that what we wanted to do or what we are doing right now is what needed to happen. Our average contribution in our first year was around $90. Like the average Pennsylvanian was like, here's $90. Go register some folks to vote. That's a lot of money. Elected officials running for office would love to receive $90 from an average person. And so that just tells us how important this work is and how invested average everyday Pennsylvanians are in this work. That we know that the way to change is to actually get registered to vote, and then hold elected officials accountable to the word and the promises they make to us when we elect them. So for us, donating to this organization so we can pay people a living wage with health insurance and life insurance and paid time off so we can enjoy our lives outside of work. That's what we believe in as an organization, and what we advocate for, we would like our elected officials do. And so we're trying to model the behavior we want to see in our government as an organization.
We're definitely gonna try to make sure, and we're definitely gonna try our best and keep promoting it, make sure people knows what's going on and who to reach out to, because this really is important. I'm still confused because I'm still learning. This is my first time interviewing anybody like you. So
well, thank you. Well, let me start here. Are you registered to vote?
No, I am not.
Yeah. So are you a citizen of the United States?
No, I'm not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
And I'll be a citizen soon.
All right. And do you have family or anyone here in the area that are citizens and maybe not registered to vote? This is where you could start.
Indictable.
Yeah, it's really just engaging the people that you know. There's another outstanding organization that I've worked with before called the Love Vote. They're out of New York, and it's a big organization that concentrates on the immigrant community who currently don't have citizenship. Maybe they're still here with a green card or whatever. And they reach out to folks who have that status to say, there's someone else in your life who actually can vote, and they probably aren't voting. Reach out to that person and say, you know what, here I am in this country. I'm a resident here of Pennsylvania. I'm a resident of Philadelphia, and I'm paying taxes because you're paying taxes, right? And I am not, there's some benefits I need to see to these taxes I'm paying in this country. And I need you to vote for me while I'm still waiting for citizenship. Vote for me and is best for my family that I've brought here to this country to experience a better life. So, I just encourage you, if you don't have the ability to vote in this moment, you absolutely have the ability to talk to people in your life who do and who are not registered to vote. Because as I look at statistics right now, I can tell you 1 in every 5 Black person who was eligible to vote in Pennsylvania is not registered to vote. That number jumps up to 1 in 3 Latinos in Pennsylvania who are eligible to vote, but not voting, not registered and not voting. And that number goes to 41% of the API community, the Asian Pacific Islander community, eligible to vote, but not registered to vote or voting in this country and in Pennsylvania in this moment. So there's so much work to do. And this is why we center communities of color. This is why we center immigrant communities. This is why we center the youth. These are the historically disenfranchised communities. Their votes are suppressed. It is not easy to get these communities registered to vote because systematically it has been set up to ensure that it is harder for these communities to register to vote and to vote. There is language access issues where not everything is in someone's preferred language. There are just historical reasons for disenfranchisement. I mean, let's talk about election day itself. Here it is. It's a Tuesday in November. It's usually cold or the weather's not all that great. And you have one day. If your state doesn't have true early voting or your state doesn't have same day voter registration, you have one day to get to the polls between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. And if you are someone who's living in Philadelphia and you are working 2 and 3 shift jobs, that's your whole day. You don't have an hour and a half to stand in line to vote. You have your next job to get to because you're making $7.25 an hour, which is, the bare minimum you can pay somebody in this country. And we're still stuck at that rate in Philadelphia.
I didn't even
So,
know that was still the rate.
we are the
I
only
didn't know
state
that.
in this area, in this
Wow.
entire area, still stuck at 7.25 an hour. Jersey, going up to 15 very soon. Delaware with a plan going up to $15 an hour very soon. Ohio, West Virginia, New York, everybody beating Pennsylvania right now. And I think Philadelphia, first class city, one of the few first class cities left in America, still stuck at 7.25 an hour as the minimum wage. Is 7.25 an hour enough for me to wake up in the morning, get out of bed, get dressed, take my kids to daycare and pay for that, and then go work for
Pay for
7.25 an hour,
pay
or
for
$8 an
daycare
hour,
at
or
seven twenty
nine
five
dollars an
hour.
hour?
Yeah. Nope. Mm-mm.
And that change comes when we vote. We've had the same elected officials, prior to this last election in 2022, we had the same political party in power in Pennsylvania who has refused for 13 years to raise the minimum wage. So change comes when you change what elected officials look like in your government. You want to increase the minimum wage? The same people can't be in office. You have to bring change.
And this is why civic education is so important because now thinking about it, even voting is one thing, but the education on it is the most important thing. Like I didn't even think about it until you came. But I know I think about the policies, but not knowing how much the breakdown is, the decision making, who really does make the decisions. But it always
Absolutely.
starts with the people. It always starts with the people first, the
It
voters.
does. It starts with the people. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. And as long as, and this is part of the 50s and the 60s civil rights movement, was making sure we were voting in blocks. And what that means is, we were coming out in every single election and we were making our voices heard in numbers that scared elected officials. If we are a community, if I'm hitting one neighborhood in Philadelphia and the entire block is not registered to vote, then there is no reason for an elected official to show up on that block. Why would you? That block is not voting for you and they're not voting you out. So why would you want to meet the needs and concerns of that community if they are not putting you in power or taking you out of power? And so that's why it's so important that we do vote. And for those who are not citizens who don't have the franchise and who cannot vote currently, that doesn't mean that you can't be active. You can still show up into a representative's office, a state representative's office, a state senator's office. You can still show up in those places and you can make your voice heard. You are here in this country. You are a resident in this country. You are paying taxes. You are paying income taxes. You are paying sales tax. You are paying taxes in this country. And so your voice should be heard as well.
I do agree. Tanisha, do you have any questions for Ms. Kadida?
Good morning, Ms. Kavita. Yes, I do have one question. So, as Ian said, the Caribbean community, we kind of shy away from voting. There's not much education. So, I have first generation, my children were born here. I don't know much. My oldest son is homeschooled. My middle son goes to a charter school, and then my baby will most likely be going to private school. So, because none of them ever attended public school, that civic education was never there. So, what can I do as a parent to get them involved?
Oh, excellent. So this is why organizations like ours exist. Find an organization that you trust to provide civic education for you. I think about really great other immigrant-led organizations in Pennsylvania, like Make the Road, CASA, who really engage immigrant communities to discuss these things. In terms of your children, right, who born in the United States, who will have the franchise, who will be eligible to vote when they turn 18 years old, and who may not be receiving civic education in their schooling. I think that you just need to go to a source in which you trust. I think about other organizations that do really great work in a nonpartisan way, right? Because we're not here to sway you as to what political party to vote for at any particular moment. I think about like the League of Women Voters, who do excellent work of educating folks. I think about organizations, one in which I serve on the board, Common Cause of Pennsylvania, who do excellent work to educate the public about civics. I think about, organizations such as Pennsylvania Youth Vote, PA Youth Vote, who do a great job of educating 15, 16, 17-year-olds, who then in turn educate their family when they get home with that information about civics, and then demand that civics be taught in these schools. We have gotten away from teaching civics in schools because we're scared to have, important conversations because they could be seen to lean one way or the other when it's just the truth. As long as you're telling the truth, this is not a political thing. And I think that our students need to hear the difference between federal and state government. They need to hear what elected officials are supposed to be doing for us when we elect them. So I think you advocate by going into the schools, even if it is a charter school, going into the charter schools that your children might belong to and say, I would like for my children to learn civics. How can we bring this back? But there's lots of organizations, and if you reach out to us as an organization, we'll provide you with some websites of those that we trust that are doing really good work to educate constituents across Pennsylvania and across the country. But I think it starts with, getting with an organization that you trust, a nonprofit such as ourselves, who are in this to do the work, not to make money, but to do the work and share the truth.
Good, very good advice.
I'm very curious about your poster behind you.
Yeah.
I've actually been trying to read it.
Yeah. So I have two of my my civil rights icons behind me. So the one here, this is Baird Rustin. And, not a lot of people know who Baird Rustin is. Baird Rustin is a Pennsylvanian. He's from Westchester, Pennsylvania, my hometown. Baird Rustin was the lead architect for the March on Washington in 1963 for Jobs and Freedom. So we've all heard the Dr. King speech, I Have a Dream. Well, it was Baird Rustin who actually was the lead architect to put together that event from Westchester, Pennsylvania. And at a time when we didn't have TikTok and we didn't have the internet or emails or Facebook, he arranged for 500,000 people to show up on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. to fight for our jobs and freedom. So I always highlight Baird Rustin from my hometown. And then behind me, the late Congressman John Lewis, who says, when you see something that's not right, not fair, not just, that we must speak up, that it is our job to speak up when things are not right and not just. And so for me, as someone who honors their ancestors, for me, it's important to bring them back into this. And I travel actually with a poster of Baird Rustin in my car. So whenever I'm at an event and I pop out to a protest or a rally, I pop out with Baird Rustin to bring him with me so he can see actually what's happening here in this country today. So it's truly, doing this work to honor the ancestors and to make sure that what they worked so hard for, what they fought and died for, and as John Lewis will tell you, was bloodied for, right, on Bloody Sunday, had his head bashed in for our rights here in this country. And it wasn't that long ago. And so still fighting for those things today.
Well, it is. It is. Sorry, Kenisha.
Say that again, Ian.
No, you could go ahead.
Oh no, I'm good. That was the burning question that I had. I'm seeing that we come from, again, somewhere totally different, where politics is completely different, how to educate our children, especially the children that are not in the public school aspect.
Yeah, that's what's so important in this moment is I think that sometimes we're just really afraid to have conversations, or teachers are now afraid to have conversations that they'll receive backlash. We have elections we just had in the primary election for school boards, and you have certain folks running for school boards who don't want their children learning things, learning about Maya Angelou, or learning about Langston Hughes, and we're scared to talk about important things. And there's always that saying that we get together, we're breaking bread. We don't want to talk about politics. We don't want to talk about religion. We don't want to talk about certain things. Well, we need to start talking about those things in this moment. If we're going to bring about this change, we can't be afraid to have the important conversations. And even it gets a little raucous every once in a while. Hey, I think we're other people who like to have loud conversations. So let's have some loud conversations about what's important.
Slightly off topic. When we talk about books being whitewashed in schools, how do you think that will affect our future, especially when it comes to decision making and voters' rights?
It's so important to teach the truth. The truth will make us free. And when we whitewash history, we're doing a disservice to future generations. Kids in school learn the cookie cutter part of Dr. Martin Luther King. They learn I Have a Dream speech. What they don't hear are his speeches like on Easter Sunday, his Easter sermon, where he preached about making sure that we are not waiting for change, that we bring change. His speech that he gave right before he died and was assassinated. The speeches he gave leading up to that, which were a lot more, you know, not whitewashed. They were speeches in which he really was real. And that's pretty much what's led to his assassination. He died trying to bring together Black and white folks who were in the same economic status, to bring them rights for the workplace, right? And so for us, it's really important to teach the whole truth and nothing but the truth. It is how we are free, and it will make us free. And if we continue to whitewash who these folks were in our lives and the history, and we're scared to teach about slavery, and we're scared to teach about the civil rights movement, this does a disservice to the children of today, and it does disservice for the children of tomorrow. We must learn from our history. We must learn from the mistakes that we make and that we made, and make retribution for those mistakes. I mean, part of the reason why we have so many problematic policies in this country today stem from the racism of the 1800s and earlier, redlining, why we can't get fair housing, why housing is more expensive for Black folks than it is for others, why the minimum wage is stuck at $7.25 an hour in places like Philadelphia. And these are all systemic issues that come from not knowing history, not learning from history, and not voting folks out of office who are trying to whitewash our history. So, so many of the problematic policies that we have in this country stem from the racial strife in this country for centuries. And it's not being fixed because now we're taking the issues out of school. How do you whitewash slavery? It was chattel slavery of human beings. How do you say that they had a better life on the plantation than they would have had in Africa? Who are we to say something such as that, to not teach the truth about what that really looked like, right? That's not freedom. That's not freedom. I don't care if you feed me the worst part of the pig or not. That was not freedom. So for us, it's really important that we still stay on the course, and all the knowledge that we bring from our families, their experiences, we must teach that history so we are, don't repeat it, or don't continue to repeat it as we are.
You know that whatever you're doing, I hope you continue to do it. Whatever we can help with, we will be there. I'm gonna continue to pass the word out that, so for all the listeners, could you tell us again where we could find you or the media
Yes.
hand?
So you can find us all over social media, just New Pennsylvania Project, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at New Pennsylvania on Twitter, at New Pennsylvania Project on the others. You can find us on our website, newpaproject.org. You can Google us, just Google New Pennsylvania Project. You'll see all the work that is being done. And we'll continue doing what we want to do for the future. And yeah, that's kind of where you find me. Otherwise, I'm out here on the ground. Yesterday, I spent the morning in Overbrook, West Philadelphia, with middle schoolers, an awesome group of kids there at Overbrook Education Center. And I head to Harrisburg yesterday evening and had a rally on the Harrisburg Capitol steps talking about the debt ceiling crisis in this country and how that will impact not only us here in Pennsylvania, but globally if we can't get that together by next month. So we're all over the place. So you can go to our website, you can see us on social media, you'll find out where we are as an organization, the work that we're doing, and join us. And would love to have you join us and love to have anyone who wants to work with us, work with us.
That's great. That's great. We will definitely invite you back before next voters registration. And so you could always reach out to me. You got my information and anything, let us know what you need and I could put it out there and we could get this thing going.
I love this. And I would love to be a frequent guest on this show. And I would love to come back in October before the deadline to get registered to vote, because you must be registered to vote 2 weeks ahead of an election in order to vote in the November election. So please have me come back here in September, October, or even before that. And let's talk about some issues, that are really important to the Caribbean community. Let's have a breakdown of civics. Let's talk about the court system. Let's talk about financial, economic justice. Let's talk about these things. I'm happy to come back and join you again.
Well, let's do that sooner than later. So I'm gonna reach out to you and we could figure out the next time that you're available and we could do that.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for coming and you enjoy the rest of your day. Keep in touch.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great one, everybody.
Bye.